In just a couple of weeks' time, the BBWAA, or Baseball Writers Association of America, will have their nominees for the 2026 class of the National Baseball Hall of Fame will be announced, at which time someone, we hope, will be immortalized forever in the great halls of Cooperstown. Here on the Baseball Banter Broadcast, we love this tradition, and we will continue to bring you our official, unofficial ballot. But before we get to that, there are two rules that are instituted and followed by the BBWAA that, in my opinion, absolutely need to be abolished right away, because they hinder both the quality and the ability of the voting body and the Hall of Fame. What are those two rules? We're going to get into it right now. So the first rule that needs to be abolished is the 10-vote maximum list. When you think about the overloaded and super crowded ballots of the last several half-decade and beyond, through the time where the steroid era players were being considered, there were so many players falling off and falling short simply because there were not enough room to vote for all the players. I think about a player like Fred McGriff, who was always being shortchanged, and in my opinion is the player that was most penalized by the steroid era, having been what we consider a clean player. Fred McGriff ended his career with 493 home runs, which would have been an absolutely impressive number if there weren't players surpassing that number in spades during the late 90s and early 2000s. Obviously, when you look at how crowded the ballots were, many writers were not even voting for the maximum of 10. So then why get rid of the rule if many people in the committee, in the Writers Association, were not even maximizing their ballots? Well, the few writers that were not following that rule and that edict of maxing out their vote obviously had the right to do so. But when you think about what this means for players that fell off of the ballot, and we're going to get to more about that in just a moment, but not having more than 10 ballot slots available really eliminates the possibility of being able to hold guys on the ballot for more consideration going forward. Obviously, there's a lot to this 10-vote maximum rule, but when you think about how loaded those ballots were, think about how many times we saw just one or two players getting in simply because voters did not have the capacity with which to vote for all the players they deemed eligible. How many writers did maximize that 10-vote maximum and still had more that they were looking to vote for? Being able to abolish this rule is a very simple thing to do, because writers would not be held to having to vote for more than 10 if they did not deem more than 10 worthy. But limiting what people and writers who vote for think is the absolute limit of that vote is really hindering. Think about the opportunity where you can have a writer that votes for 20 players, 30 players even, that they believe are worthy of the Hall of Fame. Does that diminish the quality in the case of the 10 that would have made the ballot with this limit? No. It simply magnifies and enhances the value of the players that were left off someone else's ballot because of this rule. This rule can easily be done away with and does not diminish the value of the Hall by having more opportunities for players to get in. And that leads me to the second rule, and the one that really bothers me, is the 5% rule. And the rule that states that if a player does not get 5% of the vote, they are falling off the ballot and therefore no longer eligible to be considered for the Hall of Fame through the writer's ballot. Obviously, those same players can fall to a committee era ballot much later on, but they would fall off the writer's ballot. We've seen this happen to far too many great and Hall of Fame worthy players. I come to think about players like Kenny Lofton, Bernie Williams, Jorge Posada, to just name a few. There's obviously more that could be listed in this context as well. But when you think about the case, and I'm just going to use Bernie Williams as my example, Bernie fell off the ballot not really being given consideration in the same level as another Hall of Famer that was a surefire Hall of Famer in many people's eyes, in that of Kirby Puckett. When you look at what the comp is between those two players, the numbers are strikingly similar. Obviously, there's an opportunity and a difference in the way that Bernie Williams is viewed as a regular season player and as a postseason player. And many of the accomplishments that he had for the postseason are not being given the just due that they would have had if he had been that consistent during the regular season. That said, Bernie was a tremendous player all year long. From April through November, as we saw many Yankee teams play into, this was a consistent player each and every time. And yet Bernie's Hall of Fame case fell without any real consideration. Now, yes, the argument then can be made if there's a 5% minimum that you have to achieve on across the 400 plus members of the BBWAA's ballot committee, and you can't get 5%, are you really a Hall of Famer? Sure, that question can be asked. But if you don't give credence and credibility to the amount of players on the ballot, as we saw through, as I mentioned earlier, the crazy number of players that were on the ballot through the years of the quote-unquote steroid era, many players were overlooked and left off simply because there was not enough room to vote for all of the players that were deemed worthy by the writers. So what does that mean to stay? By abolishing both the 10-vote maximum and the 5% minimum, you allow yourself the opportunity to truly get the best available pool of players and the best available pool of Hall of Famers for the Hall. Yes, this is just one baseball fan's opinion. And yes, you may say that it's tinted with rose-colored glasses, as I mentioned a couple of Yankees and most notably the Bernie Williams example. But it goes beyond just one of my favorite players of all time. It goes beyond just certain skill level set of players. When you think about guys like Jim Edmonds, Kenny Lofton, Bernie Williams, you think about the Hall of Fame level candidacy that they could have had. When you have more time on the ballot, you have more opportunity for those comps to find themselves. So it's not just comparing Bernie Williams and Kirby Puckett. There are other things that you can look at and other players that you can look to. Not to knock them, but Harold Baines is in the Hall of Fame and Bernie Williams is not. To me, that just does not add up. When you look at what these two rules have done to diminish, in my opinion, the National Baseball Hall of Fame, we have to look more deeply and look at banning and abolishing these two rules to get a better quality of Hall of Fame. But I want to hear from you, baseball fans. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down in the comment section below. Do you feel that these rules are hindering the Hall of Fame process as I do, or do you agree with them? Let me know those thoughts down in the comment section below. And as always, while you're down there, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button down below and the bell for post notifications, as it truly does help us continue to grow and build this baseball community here at the Baseball Banter Broadcast. We have a ton of new creators here and contributors, and we definitely want you to be able to get and maximize their contributions here on the Baseball Banter Broadcast. And the best way to do that is to be subscribed. And as always, we have a ton of new content that is coming this year, one of which we are happy to announce is baseballbanterbroadcast.com, where you can get exclusive articles from the team here at the Baseball Banter Broadcast. So make sure you check it out. I'll leave it linked down in the show notes below, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Peace.